Hello everyone, this is tutorial 14. Now it comes to Docker. So Docker is literally we try to virtualize all the environment we tried to use before, like Apache, HTTP, WordPress something, and MariaDB. It's just like trying to integrate all the environments and support to run these binaries into a container, and you can just pause them. So it's actually uh, contradictory, maybe a little bit, like comparing to like you just service start MariaDB, service start HTTPD. So you are literally still using that, but you're pulling from Docker. So if you are actually using instance like that is already like from previous tutorial, you have like HTTP up, you have MariaDB up, you probably want to set them down. And for this tutorial, you don't need um, the ES33, you actually need this ES38. So after connection, you should have like internet access to the whole internet. So basically, you can ping Google, like this kind of thing. Yeah, and now we're gonna try to pull all the environment we're gonna use through Docker. So as root, first thing first, let's see if we have Docker. Also, Docker requires a daemon process as well. It's just called Docker. You need to start this thing, and you can just try to use Docker run, and let's just try this hello world thing. Yes, hello world thing. No other. So it says like unable to find image hello world locally. So because we haven't used it before, and now we try to pull from the Docker hub, you will see this hello from Docker here. So this container is literally useless except printing this information here. But then shows you that your Docker is actually using it's actually working properly. So now we're root user, we can run this. But for a normal user, in order for them, like student, for student user, if we want to make end user to be able to use any Docker stuff, we need to add them to the group called Docker, so they can actually use this thing. Student does not exist because if I spell it more correctly, it will exist. And now we can go to the student user. Now, if we run as student user, we try to run this hello world thing, we will be able to. But if you just like use a student user and you try to run Docker command, it won't work. It will give you permission denied. So Docker contains lots of stuff. For example, we have PHP, Apache, we have even WordPress, and definitely MariaDB. This kind of thing. We have binary. We can install through yum, or like apt or pacman or portage image with other package manager. But you can just pull from, but that differs from distribution to distribution, and if you're on Windows and macOS, that's a completely different story. But Docker, you can just pull from Docker Hub and just instantly works. It works anywhere as long as you have the Docker like the runtime on. So let's just try to make like a website, like a PHP one work. We just call this Docker demo, and we get into it. Let's try to run a website with PHP, and let's make a source directory, and we actually want to put our like index.php, this kind of thing in it. So PHP file, gonna echo hello, and we're gonna finish this page. And in order to use Docker, we need to use something called Dockerfile. So aside to our source directory, we can create this Dockerfile. And Dockerfile literally the syntax is like a from, it's what to pull. So we want to pull PHP, version it, that is with a tag with Apache. It means this this thing has been integrated with Apache, and we copy the source file just aside to /var/www/html. So this is basically how Apache handles the default web page, and we want to expose port 80. So we can, god damn it, bear with me, sorry. So we can Docker build this this instance here, and with T the tag, call this thing hello world, and we build right here. So we're trying to pull the PHP from the Docker Hub, and there will be lots of things. This is literally like you are trying to, if you're compiling a code or generate like a binary or class file from Java or C, C++, and you, after you have the built thing stuff, you can literally run with port 80. One is the container port, one is your machine's port, so 80 to 80. You want to run this hello world container with the tag, and with that being run, we go to Firefox. So this is like a vanilla CentOS virtual machine. Like this is, I just like started. I didn't service start Apache. I didn't service HTTP start. I didn't do systemctl enable start HTTP does not happen. But if I go to localhost, I will be able to have the hello, because the Docker PHP actually pulls up run and put this source into this HTML file, and you can see I got some logs as a GET request for visiting this file. So one of the issue of this thing is, if you go to this, sorry, I think it's called Docker demo, right? Brain does not work so well. So if you go to this Docker file, if you want to change the source right now, so okay, I don't want to hello right now, I want to say bye-bye. Bye-bye. And if you save this, if you refresh, this will not work, because this page has actually been copied to /www/html. It was like, has been put up to a production environment. That is not exactly the file you're editing right here. So how are we gonna conquer this if we want to, if we want some like instant feedback from our changes through this file? So remember, in the Docker file, we're actually copying the source content to this HTML. So absolutely, we're not doing that. We're just gonna try to use this thing through. We're just gonna try to run our website in this directory. So first thing, we can try to build this again. Still same tag. Hello world dot, and so this time we run, we need to so we still like try to like give port 80 to port 80 from container to our machine. We use this -v option or flag. So the current address for this demo is student, I believe student is docker demo, and the source. So we mount this directory to /var/www/html. So now the PHP Apache is still accessing this this localhost use var www.html, but it's just simply a mount point of this src file in our home directory. So if I refresh, this should be bye-bye. But if I want to say like ciao, and it will work instantly because this folder has been mounted to /var/www/html, so every change will be reflected immediately. So if you are if you are trying to do some test during a development, but using Docker as your runtime, this will become actually very handy. So the Docker things we get is actually pulling from this thing called Docker Hub. No, thank you. Except all stuff. Okay, so if you go to PHP, you will see there actually PHP is right here, and there are actually so many kind of variants with so many different purposes with different tags. So all these tags, sorry, my screw is not working well. Like they will have a little information here, support of ZTS for Debian 11, so Bullseye, for Debian 12, so Bookworm, with FPM support. I actually don't know what is that, but it's on the tutorial. Please go and check. And with Apache integrated and different versions, so we have 8.3, 8.2, 8.1, of course. And for this tag, you can actually port different versions of PHP and achieve different goals. So now we pull this PHP container, we actually achieve to start up a website with Apache. Yay! But sometimes, like if we have a website, I need a web server. I also need a database. So I probably need multiple containers. So, and how we're gonna do is we're gonna use Docker Compose. And let's just start another demo. See if we want to make a blog. So just make a directory called blog. This is our blog project. We're gonna use a config file called docker-compose-yml, and we're gonna create two directories, one for our web server, one for our database. And in our database, we're of course gonna need a Docker file. Sorry, uppercase. Bear with me, I'm losing my voice. So in the, I believe this is the website one. Docker file. Okay, so this is none. So this is none. Q abandoned. Okay, so Docker Compose. So it's actually, we should go to web, this directory. We make a Docker file because we are pulling the container into for this purpose, right? So when you want to pull, for example, we want to WordPress, and we use the latest version, and we want to expose port 80 because this is like literally a web server. And for database, you want to pull the MariaDB as your database service. So from MariaDB, still want the latest. And for MariaDB, you probably want to give it the time zone of your computer. So Australia, Hobart, into /etc/time zone. Pay attention, this is not a time zone for your machine. This is a time zone for this containers at the time zone for its own environment. And yeah, and after that, of course, you want to make website, want to make source folder in it, and you want to make a source, or actually DB database. You want to also make a folder DB, contain all the database information. And now you can use Docker build command to build them with tag or Apache through the web directory, and this is pulling WordPress out. it's getting really long, and we pull from the MariaDB as well. So this is basically it. And the other thing is about the Docker compose YAML file. So we need this file to actually like conject the work of two different containers. So YAML file is a type of configuration file that is indentation sensitive. So you want to make sure like your file has always the same indentation throughout the thing, and you want to make sure like the indentation actually the level of indentation for each keywords actually matches. So volume is in the same level of build, and like this dash words should be like two space indented in, then it should throughout the file it should always be the case. So I don't know if like all the editor has gonna handle it, so good luck. If you're using Vim, I do suggest you to, in your home folder, create this thing called vimrc. And in vimrc, you can actually set expand, it's called expand tab, right? It's called expand tab. So basically this means we're no longer tabbing. Every time you press tab, Vim will give you space. Vim will hit space 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, whatever you like. And the tab stop is actually the number of tabs you want it to be. And I'm just gonna use 2. And I think this is enabled on CentOS, but I'm just gonna open it anyway. So smart indent, so you can have the throughout the configuration file, you can always have the same indent if you create a new line by by return button, and shift with, I just set this as well, and the backspace. So just in case you are deleting, you just backspace with 2 space if you have indent on. So yeah. So now we built the Apache. We want to build the MariaDB with MariaDB as a tab due to the database. So it's gonna take a while as well. So for the composer file, this is the content. Let's just copy and paste with our own adjustment on the indentation, and of course some of the things we need to change. For some reason I didn't copy the V. Okay, that's a big error for me. So version is 3. Services I want to enable. So first thing is database with build on database /database. Container name is MariaDB. That's the tag we created. Volumes, there's only one volume, that is var-lib-mysql in the environment, and the environment itself is the value of what we need to configure. Sorry, thank you. So database is using root account, but the root password of this database is depending on us. We can change my own. This time I'll just use true. And pause enabled for MariaDB or MySQL. It should always be conventionally. It should be 3306. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're mapping the port from the container to the actual machine as well. Other service we're gonna need is the web service, and we put the build information here with. I think I had one more indentation. So let's just change this. Thank you. Let's just change this. Make it 1, 2. Container. Go to next line. Queues. No. So 1, 2. So let's set relative number. So we need to do this 7 times and 1 times, and the web actually need to be here. Yep. So just make sure we are only using 2 indentations. It's actually all fine as long as you make sure they're all the same indentation you're applying to. And containers name for sure. Environment. So for the host, you probably want to use MariaDB, but for the WordPress database user, you can just use whatever you want, and you need to create this later. I'm just gonna use Rohit, and the password of user, let's just use Tor, and the database name, let's just use WordPress. So actually, sorry Rohit, I'm just gonna use WP because this is WordPress, it's more intuitive. So we need to set up the volumes for this web server, or WordPress, and port goes from 80 to 80 and depends on database, which is the first container I mentioned here. I hope I didn't change anything. So I didn't change anything accidentally. So now I will try to. I think I can try to build now because I built the container, like the web container and the database container. So now if I try to compose, I'll try to build everything together, and it actually works. That's very cool. So now if I go to doc compose up, everything looks fine. So if we go to localhost, we should refresh. Yeah, so this is not working still. And the reason why is like, see, we are having error establishing database connection. Remember, we put all this information about our beloved like database, like a MySQL user, and try to database user authentication and the database name, and MySQL, we need to give it like a root password. Yeah, and we haven't done that yet. And in order to do that, we need to get into this database container. And how we do it is gonna use this exit subcommand with it as a flag. And we're gonna go to this MariaDB tag, DB, thank you, and we're gonna use bash. So connector is not running. Okay, so in order to do this, we need to run our container. Because they're gonna like, so we can, if we use up, it's gonna like just hover the screen and halt the input. So we can use -d. So we make them up, but we also have the terminal back because they are gonna run as daemon. Now we can actually get into this MariaDB like environment, and we can actually use the MySQL like how we configure in our normal tutorial 9.11 with normal MariaDB binary instance on our environment. But do notice MariaDB in the newest version is dropping MySQL as the alias for running the program. So if you do MySQL, please ignore this thing. So if you do MySQL -u root -p, this will not work because MySQL is no longer a legit command in the newest version of MariaDB installation. So you need to use MariaDB -u root -p, and user you just create is TOR. You specified in the file, in the YAML file. And now we just need to create a database, and the database and user WP identified with the password we used before. I believe it's TOR, right? Because I don't know how to use anything else. And we just grant all this database called WordPress, more like Dpress right now. to use this user WP. On this container, we use this percentage, single quoted percentage, to represent this container. So this is like literally like a localhost before. You used to do in tutorial 9, 11, etc., etc. So identity divide by 12, please. Okay, thank you. So flash privileges and reset, because we have done this. We'll create the user, and now we should probably be able to visit. Yes, so now we see the WordPress initialization page, so we can just continue, set up a thing just like we did at the end of tutorial 9. So you can do whatever you like. So just like I mentioned before, with this -d command, you can put things into daemon mode, so you actually have your terminal back. You can also see what it has been running behind with docker.ps. You can see all of the, containers. If I believe I can scroll this a little bit. Yes, WordPress and MariaDB is still running, so you can use Docker. I think because there's two of them, we should use compose. And yes, exactly. And they're turned off. And also, if you don't want to use the containers on your system anymore, because Docker is too chunky, too bloated, or whatever you think that is. Nowadays it's really good though. You can use this Docker system perm A. That means remove all the Docker containers on your system, and you will find they were actually quite chunky, 1.6 gigabytes. And that is it. And you do notice, like, all these config files of your previous Docker project, it does not get wiped. So if you want to do this again, one Docker compose, one Docker build, you can pull them from Docker Hub, and you can do all of them all over again. So that is tutorial 14 in terms of the skills to learn for exam. So you need to know what Docker files for single containers for. You need to know how to use Docker Compose for multiple containers working with each other. And you also need to know basic Docker commands like build, run, piece, and system pun. So you just can remove everything. And that is tutorial 14. Thank you.